Hello and welcome back to this little series we're doing on the RealityXP GTN 750. So in the last episode of the series, you would have seen us installing it, going through the configuration options, getting it configured, as well as how to bring it up and get it installed into the RealSimGear GTN 750 bezel without the graphical bezel so that it properly fills the whole unit. One of the things, and I felt it's not necessary because that was covered in the review of the RealSimGear GTN bezel, was the installing of the software as well as the getting it operational, because all of the module items are not, and what I mean by that is all of the buttons and knobs are handled through their plugin. So their plugin is taking care of all that for us. So we don't really have to do anything about it, which is nice. Let's go ahead and let's look at our fuel and payload. We are 100% full. So we're just going to say that we got me in there. So we're going to go with full fuel. We'll get pushing back here. See ourselves pushing back here in lovely KSAN. Far enough back, so we'll go ahead and end our push right about here. Let's go ahead and let's get into, we have 120 gallons on board, check. Transponder, we're going to go to altitude reporting, 1356, enter. Awesome, so that controls that, and we are happy. So our audio panel is functioning. We can monitor COM 1 and COM 2. That's pretty cool. For now, we are going to stay here. All right, so let's get started up before we get ourselves into too much trouble with power. So let's hop on inside. We're going to get rid of the yokes so we don't see them. Gear handle is down, power is on, avionics master is on. We'll leave it on. Normally you wouldn't start it this way. So fuel pump. Okay, so now it's primed. Fuel pump goes off. And clear prop. There we go. All right. Definitely more power than needed. We'll go ahead and get ourselves nicely situated. All right. So, looking in our forward display, first things first, we need to put in our flight plan. Now, just like in the real world, well, sorry, let me rephrase that. In the real world, you could have a flight stream system and you could, from your iPad, upload your flight plan that you pre-planned ahead of time. But we're going to use it as I don't have one of those in the sim, which would be neat, by the way, Garmin, if we could figure out how to do that. That would be very cool. All right, moving on. So first thing we want to do is we want to do our flight plan. So we're going to go from KSAN, right? And from KSAN, we are going to go to NKX. So we already pre-put it into our beanie monitor thing. So NKX VOR. From the NKX VOR, we are going to go to the PSP VOR, Palm Springs VOR, and then from that we are going to go to KPSP. So a nice simple flight plan. So en route, I do use Navigraph, so which also runs on the iPad. You can also use that as your EFB if you do not want to have to pay for an EFB. You can use Flight Plan Go, but if you're paying for Navigraph and Navigraph data anyway, then obviously this makes for a great EFB. So we're going to add a flight real quick, and it's going to be KSAN to, whoops, KSAN, KPSP, departure, KSAN, KPSP. We're not going to fly an alternate. So we are going to go KSAN to, what do we say? NKX to PSP, KPSP. Now is it going to validate? Yay, this is a valid route. Okay, so before it used to add this for you. So now it's doing a better job of that. Cool. So we've now saved that flight plan. We have that flight plan. Let's go ahead and click on that flight plan. And let's place this so that it is visible. In our flight plan, NKK direct PSP, look at that. We can see what our route's going to take us. Not a problem. For San Diego, we can view the charts, Jeppesen charts that they provide. So when we look at, say, the SID, so the Standard Instrument Departure, and the only reason for doing this is we're going to come in to the GTN and look at this, is we can see the information, and there are a lot of standard departures that you get to use. And so there's also even things like your takeoff obstacle notes, so you can read those. It allows for a lot of information. There's also the reference for the Class B reference, and so here we can see all of the Class B airspace and all of the shelves and how you may enter and exit this area. But what's nice is we can get a lot of this information inside of the GTN. There's a lot of ways to calculate your flight plan. There's a lot of services out there to calculate the flight plan. Since we're going to focus on how to maximize and leverage flying with the GTN 750, we're going to intentionally not use the flight bag. Though the flight bag is a great way to figure out a route, you can do a lot of that from in here. But obviously there is an expectation of maps, or you're going to zoom out and look for things. But for now, let's pretend that we're just in this. So by entering this information, and let's go ahead and get into our larger view. With the menu at the bottom, you'll notice it comes up. I can catalog, I can store this route, I can delete it, parallel track, invert. So this flight plan, we can go ahead and we can preview this flight plan. And you can see that flight path and how it's taking us out there. So it gives us some nice flexibility in that. Now, yes, we could enter information, and like I said, normally, and that's just in my brain, is to go to a flight bag and to look at charts to figure it out. But that same information is actually inside of our GTN. So we're going to click on KSAN, and what we're going to do now is you'll notice we get some information pop up. Insert before, insert after, insert, I guess, along the track. Hold at waypoint, so we could actually hold over a KSAN. We could load a standard arrival, and we could load a procedure. As well, we have our waypoint info. So we want to click on waypoint info, and this takes us basically to, the airport information. You'll notice there's also a view charts. So you can look at the charts, you can look at the approach plates, all right on the GTN. So that's pretty cool about how it functions that way. You can zoom in, so we can zoom into it. And now on the real GTN, it's a lot easier to swipe and move. Now I got to play around some more, but there is a way to make it work like more like mouse mode and drag. But I was having some issues with the whole thing and some slight movement. So I've kind of locked it down and have been dealing with that. First up, let's go ahead, our ATIS. We need to know what's going on here so that we can figure out what runway we are going to be departing off of. Now, just by clicking on the ATIS, it automatically loads it for you into the standby. You tap on the green COM, which doubles as the swap button. All right, so 27 is in use. We're going to go ahead and put clearance in there. So we have information kilo. We would be contacting clearance. Good morning, Lindbergh. Clearance, you have a Bonanza, November, oh God, what are we, 829 kilo, on the ramp, looking to pick up our flight plan to KPSP, Palm Springs. And then they would read back our clearance to us and tell us to expect runway 27. And by the way, I should have said with kilo, but whatever. And they may either, depending on how busy it is, depending on the airport, they might have you go with them, or they might tell you when ready to contact ground. So we're going to go ahead and pop ground in. So far we have the first pieces of what we need set up into our panel. If you are completely done with clearance and you're sure that they don't even want you to, contact them, it's straight to ground after this, you could populate ground right now, allowing us to go ahead and get tower ready, since we'll be contacting tower after we contact ground. Just one less step. Of course, then you'd be going from there to departure. And this is where having a second radio really comes in handy. We would have been able to put the frequencies for COM2 in. And we'll get to that probably in another episode. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we can see the airport, but we're going to get ready for our procedures. So now you can see there's a ton of approach procedures, and there is a bunch of departure procedures. So since we know we want to load up a departure, let's go ahead and load procedure. So now we're going to need a departure. And here are all of your departures that you have available to you. So that's a bunch. And this is where, having read the charts, it becomes helpful to know which departure they're going to give you. And so sometimes other flight bags are very good at first giving you the information. So if we looked at the Moto 2, right, and we say we want to look at it off of runway 27, select transition, so say your transition will be Mallet. The problem here is now what you can see is it's going to send us out of 27, and then we're actually would be hanging a left and headed out over the water. That's obviously not a departure that we would be doing with this plane. I mean, not below 15,000 by the time we start getting out there. This is, a pretty significant departure. And it's not really in the direction we want to go. So we're going to pick our runway. Now what you'll see is less departures available. So if we look at the border 7, runway 27, and select transition IPL. So now this kind of makes more sense, since we'd be taking 27, headed out to Peggy, Rose, then up to IPL. And so from IPL, now we would say continue on. Now what's neat about this as well is these departures are taking us pretty far out for a transition. We probably wouldn't go past Peggy as far as we're concerned. Peggy is really going to be our final kind of transitionary point. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to load departure. So now what we're going to see is fly heading. Then we're going to change our heading to a 123 intercept. Then it will be direct Peggy. Then it would be Burroughs, then IPL. So what we want to do though is we're going to eliminate some of these items. So we can remove this item and we can remove that item, because once we hit Peggy, we are going, or Poggy, sorry, not Peggy, Poggy. We're actually going to go direct PSP at that point. So in that case, what we will also do is we are going to get rid of Myanmar, this item from our flight plan. And so now really we're going to PEGI or PGY. Poggy. I keep saying PEGI. I want it to be PEGI. It's not. It's POGI. PGY. So I'm just going to update our flight path, and away we go. In our flight plan, go back into our GTN, so we hit the home button, or we can hit menu from here and we can preview. Now we can see that we will be going out towards PEGI and then going up towards PSP. For Palm Springs, we can actually go in and we could load a standard arrival. So we could load a pattern, we could load pattern and sorry, this is a search and rescue, not a standard arrival. My bad, load search and rescue. Let's first go to the arrival. Again, here you'd kind of want to know what arrival is best. And so here we're going to have to pick a guess at first, because we can see that's not the direction that we're going to be coming from. So it's not the cloud one. So let's try. And again, that brings it in over the top. These ones are a lot more difficult to do if you don't know what it is. So this is one of those cases where showing the chart actually becomes very important to us. If this is the, how do I say this politely? To me, this is the place where I find the GTN 750 falls a little bit apart. You still end up needing to go to your separate charts and look them up. So yeah, I could look at the chart inside of the unit, click on chart, and now we could look at the arrivals. And it is a little bit harder. Just because I can't drag. I'm sure if I could drag or if I could position and focus on that point, it would be much, much better. But unfortunately, let's go full. So 29 Palms, Palm Springs, Palm Springs. A lot of these are for arrivals coming from much higher flight routes. I don't know. All right, so let's look at the cloud one. Let's look at the chart. Okay, arrival, cloud one chart. So the cloud one, because Palm Springs is over here on the left. The cursor's up so you can see that. The cloud one, it does look like you could arrive thermal. It also looks like there's a PSP. And then what happens is you go for the hold, you then go into the approach. So we probably should not consider doing an arrival for this. The Sizzler, KSAN, Sizzler, OV transition. So those are coming from the north, and you're talking like, yeah, flight level 240. Again, arrivals are really for coming down from the higher airspaces. So for this, what we're going to do is we're going to cancel the arrival, but we're going to look at the approach. If you know what weather to expect, you can predetermine your approach. We're probably looking at 3-1 left, 3-1 right is what to expect. So if we were to say, okay, the VORB GPS, let's just, instead of a visual, let's do something that's going to give us an approach. And when we look at that chart, the idea here is you're going to do the VOR approach, and you're essentially going to go to thermal. So we'd hit Palm Springs, we'd hit the radial, you'd enter the hold, and then you would exit on the 292 radial from thermal, and that would take you to the approach path at the base. It is not a precision approach. So your minimums are much higher. It is a circling minima. So you're talking like 1,000 feet. Again, it's hard to read it right now because we can't scroll. See, that's the problem. If you click in it and move, the whole thing seems to move. So that's why I don't want it to act like a mouse. I'm going to use that approach. We'll expect 3-1 left approach, and we're going to load the approach. And we want to load that approach. So now when we preview, we're going to enter up there, and then we're going to have to use our own vectoring to get to the visual, which makes sense. It's a visual approach. It will be expecting you to enter from PSP to get onto the approach path by yourself. And because we're coming over the top, of these mountain range, it's important to understand this is why you'll be doing the descending on the other side. So it's going to be helpful anyway, because when we get there, we're going to need to start descending and then coming back around. So with that, I think we have all the information programmed that we're going to use. We'd obviously be needing to fly a citation or something that would give us the higher flight levels to really use one of these things. And we'd be doing it on a much longer flight anyway. We've got everything loaded. We can go into our map. Now, this is the other part that I really, really, really like about this product, is the fact that, and zoom in, and we get these safe taxi diagrams right inside of it. So it's really nice. Go ahead, get down there. We can see our taxiways. We're going to go ahead and get the parking brake off, and we are going to start our taxi. So, taxi light is on. And we'll put our other lights on. Taxi light is on. Taxi light, panel lights, beacon lights, nav lights are on. We definitely need to make sure we're set. We are. Both fullest tank. Make sure it is rich. All right. Oh, I know what we didn't do. In our flight plan, we did not say that we wanted at or below. We want to be up to at least 10,000 feet. Well, actually, 10.5. Oh, 10,500. Call it at or above. That one will be a little bit more difficult to deal with. Okay. So there's our map. All right. $270. So we're going to enter the runway. Gonna get on that center line. And we are going to pause. Oh, stop here for a second. Now, what we want to do is we want to check out that the settings that we made are correct. So we're going to go ahead and mark the VOR localizer. And so in this nav mode, our flight director is on. And if we go ahead and we say we're going to go up to 3,000 feet, there we go. And now it does look like our GPS is feeding our information, and nav mode is enabled. All right, we're going to go up to 3,000, and we're going to see what this does for us. So feet are on the brakes. Power is set. Gauges are in the green. Release the brakes. And it automatically goes into auto mode and gives us our 8 nautical mile look. All right, so tap the brakes and gear up. There's that gear going up, and we'll go ahead and we'll get our flaps up. Flaps are up. That V-tail looks nice. Got to admit, real pretty plane. All right, we're going to go ahead now and fly those command bars, and let's go ahead and get back in. So we're still looking forward, and really what we want to be doing here is seeing how well this allows it to fly. So we're going to enable the autopilot strictly so that we can see, there's the yaw dampener, beautiful, just so we can see how it flies based on the GPS data. And at this point we can go ahead and throttle back. We are off the ground. Get ourselves to about 2,500, and then go ahead and pull our prop back to about 2,500, and we'll just lean a little bit, not much, but we can lean a little bit, watching our EGT, and watching our EGT just fall off just a bit. Okay, so let's just zoom in a little bit, and we can see we're on our way out, and we are tracking the GPS overlay. And so this is what's really nice about flying a departure, where the departure has a lot of heading instructions. So this is obviously not, and it's depicted really by these kind of dashed lines, that this is the routing, but it wasn't a linked route, meaning you're flying this based on headings and rough points. It's not a VOR, it's not a radial, it's not a track, it's not a DME, so you don't fly this heading on this radial for this many. Actually, it is. Sorry, that's exactly what this is. You fly a heading of 278 until you reach 19 nautical miles from Poggy. And so at 19 nautical miles from Poggy, you turn left to a heading of 123 degrees. And so on this departure, you would manually be basing this all off of DME. So we want to stay zoomed in just so everybody can see it. Actually, since we're on autopilot, don't really need to see the outside at the moment. Let's just bring the focus in a little bit more on the GTN. Actually, you know, I think it's better just over there. Sure, Still better to be over there. You'll see my touching of the screen anyway. So here you'll notice we've shot past it. It's on GPS, but that GPS is not tracking. So in the settings, we should have gone to a heading of 123. So we had to fly a heading of 123. So 134.8, we put that in the second radio. And of course you didn't see it because it was covered up, but essentially I dialed in the second radio based on that information. So let's bring that back full. So by doing that, what we've done is put it into the second radio. I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to show off the audio controls. So if we go into our and we monitor, we can hear that. So just touching the monitor will toggle it on. If I tap mic 1, I go over to mic 2, and it automatically switches the monitor. Tap the monitor, I can hear both. Tap the 1, goes back to 1. Now, you've also, though, got your intercom control, which in the simulator does nothing, but this is really nice when you're flying. If you've got passengers that are yapping, you can actually make it so that they can talk to you. You can set up who can talk to who. So this is nice because technically these guys could talk, but I can't hear them, but I can hear the co-pilot still. But it would be quite entertaining. So now we go into Vor Localizer Mode, which is actually nav mode. Nav mode, the switch, the button, but that's just me hitting the autopilot. So here, it now has that solid magenta line, which means it has something for the GPS to track. And now, by the way, we were supposed to be Pogi, we were supposed to be trying to get up to our 10.5. Oops, my mistake. So we should be able to climb to 10.5. There's our Lena Peak for now. We are grounding, so we're true air is about 163 knots, so we're moving nice and fast, though our indicated is 150, so pretty hot bird considering we were running 25 on the prop and a lot of power. We can go ahead and add power in. As our altitude's increasing, we're losing manifold pressure, so we'll get it up to 24 inches manifold, 25 on the prop. And up we go. We can enable our low. This aircraft will never be over 18,000, so having the low airways is nice. Being able to see the Victor Airways, you'd be able to fly them and insert them as an airway if we were flying on an airway. Charts. We can add charts so that you can overlay charts on to the interface as well. So once you've pulled up a chart, you can do a chart overlay. Map setup. Here's just where you come in to figure all of your information of all of your settings of how you want your map to display. your airport range, your heliports, safe taxi diagrams, runway extensions, all the information that you need and how you want it depicted for you. Land, road detail, city detail, state and province names, your rivers, lake detail, and then finally airspaces. How do you want the airspaces to be handled? How do you want them to be displayed? So yeah, it's pretty awesome. There's no question that there's a lot of functionality you get in this. And then even your detail, you can pick what level of detail that you want. Not to mention you can change the user fields and what information you want in those corners. So here we up the detail. So now we can see more information regarding the airspace, and if we click in that area, we can actually see that we've highlighted that airspace. We can hit on the info, and we can see that that's the San Diego area, Class Bravo airspace. It is 2 minutes ahead, and hey, frequencies for SoCal approach. So we're probably going to want SoCal approach. So we would be on departure. So whichever one they gave us, we'll just say it was 119.6. And that is the departure frequency we probably would be on. Max altitude 10,000, min altitude 4,800. So that means the shelf. So the shelf is the space. Below 4,800, you wouldn't be in contact with them, and neither would you be in the Class Bravo airspace above 10,000. Now you could be going VFR and not talking to anybody and literally stay below 18,000 and still be good in the US. In Canada, once you get above 12,000, you're in Class Bravo airspace no matter what. So throughout Canada, above that altitude, you would be talking to your controllers. Looking at our flight plan, we are en route to the PSP Palm Springs VOR. After we arrive, we are going to transition into the visual 3-1 left approach. Hop back in, and let's go ahead and look at our GPS a little bit bigger. So what we see here is we're now coming over the top, and we can go ahead now and get ourselves down to 8,500 feet. And the reason why we say this is just thinking that we are well clear now of these obstacles. The biggest ones are now behind us. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to power back a bit as we are descending. Distance destination 25.6 miles, but we are actually going a little bit further. So we're kind of coming over the top of the airport, which is kind of off of our nose and straight down there. As you can see, you're coming in a pretty awkward thing from this side of a very, very high mountainous area. So the VOR is on the other side, and the idea is you fly across, you hit the VOR, and then you can make that descending right-hand turn as you're now down inside of the valley and head out towards probably TRM would be a lot of them, just like the VOR GPS approach they have takes you from PSP to TRM. You can do a hold at TRM and then start your approach. or just use that as the turning point to do your teardrop turn. So here we're on our way down to 8,500. We're going to go ahead and give ourselves 1,200 feet per minute. Realistically, we actually can go lower. So if we were to go to our flight plan and we were to change this now and change it to 3,500, right, and save that, we can now see that it's updated 3,500 in here, and we're going to go ahead and at least go down, and we chose a at or above 3,500, so for now we're going to go to a 5,500. And again, nice thing about this is our KPSP. We can see our airport chart and our airport diagram. We can see the airport information. So elevation is 476 feet. So yeah, at 3,500, we're still pretty high in that area. When we get ourselves to our visual approach, so what's nice about our approach, airport diagrams, alternate minimums. So if we looked at airport diagram, it'll show the airport diagram. We can look at alternate minimums, get all the information about our alternate minimums, climb and descent table, your hotspot, in-op components, and even your takeoff minimums. So that's just giving you all of your rules. So here on the left, even with the GPS up, we can see the airport, and you can see that coming in over these mountains, there's no way you could get yourself down and into a straight in. You could fly to the airport and then do a right-hand turn to join the right-hand base and make your way that way, or as flying a VFR approach or any type of an approach or an arrival, we really do need to be going to PSP, which is straight ahead of it. And so now when we look at this, you'll notice what's funny is as this brings us to PSP, it wants us to actually make the turn to KPSP. That's just what the GPS is programmed to do. So if we go to the flight plan and we actually remove this, what'll happen is it'll actually remove the approach. And so the problem with that is now what we need to do is we need to really activate that leg. The problem is it gives us a straight up course to that leg. So now when we go back and we look at our map, now we're all messed up, right? So that's all wrong. It's taking us completely in the wrong path. So really, go to our flight plan. We need to activate that approach. And now the approach is behind us. So we're going to go into heading select because we are going to completely blow through it. And so now that we're on the safe side and we're going to be making a right-hand turn on the safe side. So we're clear the mountains, over the airport, making the right-hand turn to head to go to the visual. So now we are going to fly outbound. While we're doing that, we go back to our flight plan. You can see that the visual 3 nautical mile is 1418. So basically 1,000 feet above. Start our descent down to 2,000. And we're really going to start throttling back. This is a very slippery plane. And so off our right wing over there is the abeam of the visual 3 nautical mile point. Now we are going to intentionally fly a little past it. So about there, because we don't want to get too far out when we bring ourselves back around. So now this turn will take us a little bit away. Come on, give it, stay there. This is on purpose. So 310 minus 45 would be 265. So I spun way too much. Okay. So by setting 265, that puts us on a 45-degree intercept. And as soon as we enabled the nav, you'll notice the GTN, because we had that approach functionality pre-calculated. It doesn't like. Okay. Our airspeed is below, so we are in a good place. Let's go ahead and get our gear down. Make sure our landing light is on. All right, gears down. Hopefully it will stop yelling at us. All right, so we have our speed down. It has picked up the approach, so it is going after the glide slope as well. We are high, but luckily we can get ourselves in there safely. Get our speed down. I probably shouldn't have done my flap so soon, but hopefully we will be okay. Okay, our yaw dampener, our approach, we are locked in. And it is pitching to try to pick up that bug. And our altitude hold left on us on its own. But it has captured the glide slope, and it has captured the so now we dip below because of such an aggressive approach speed. Now it's doing a good job to bring the nose up. And I guess fly the approach. Though luckily it's not pitching up, so I like this a lot better. Some of the autopilots in FSX will pitch up and go chase it, and it's not supposed to. It's supposed to capture from below and then ride it down. So here we are still sinking. We're definitely below the glide path, but it's holding that all the way down. Obviously by now you would have long ago disabled the autopilot, but I'm trying to see what it'll do. So, okay. Whoa, we did not get the yaw dampener off. And we are, wow, are we ever drifting across the runway? Oof. Oh. Wow. It's a whole lot of hopping. Okay. Let's get her slowed down. And we're going to go ahead and zoom in now. So we can zoom in. And we can see where those taxi exits are. So we're going to backtrack the runway. Well, with that, we're going to end this video here. Thank you for watching it. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and come see us on the next one where we're going to be going ahead putting the RealityXP GNS 530, which we'll use as the main GPS, and do a similar type flight, only we'll do the reverse. We'll do PSP back to KSAN using departures and an approach, seeing how well it can integrate with the sim. Like I said, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.